Top 10 strange facts about crowds. Crowds usually have an impact on each other in unusual ways. They develop strange memories, seem to lose intellectual points when inside a room, but not outside, and easily flow together like rivers. Misconceptions also have their impact on crowds, but in a good way. Of course, they often influence themselves into staying near threats and even convince the crowd into becoming a threat. There are fun facts associated with being in crowds, such as the reason many individuals have difficulty finding their friends, as well as the sad reality of undesirable loved ones in the largest religious crowds. If you've enjoyed this Tiptop 10 video, be sure to share and hit the red subscribe button so you never miss the latest top 10 lists from the mundane, craziest, weirdest, yet normal things we've ever seen in our lives. Number 10. Large gatherings have no use during the chaos. Although there is security in large numbers, grouping together can be quite deadly during a crisis. Recent research discovered this depressing fact when a task was given to 108 teams of respondents. The large or small group needs to decide if they want to leave during a pretend crisis. Only an individual in each of the groups is aware of the genuine extent of the chaos, how dangerous it is, and if it is necessary to leave. The remaining individuals need to discuss the incident with others. This will create a genuine experience of doubts and speculations. This experience of doubt creates a scary group response. The rumors began to spread, and the largest of the group will determine how they grasp the doubt-removing opinions while neglecting the negative ones. In this way, most teams become convinced that it is the right decision to remain in the danger area, even when in reality, the incident necessitated the abandonment. Number 9. Pedestrians flow like a river. Crowds get a bad name from riots. The violence and chaos are not usually the poster kid for smartness. The prejudice that individuals tend to drop down whenever they gather in groups made researchers believe that individuals in a group move irregularly and without intellect. The realistic truth, though, is really amazing. Moving crowds reveals an intuitive harmony that enables strangers to flow like river currents, and friends tend to gather together in a formation. When a couple of friends move together, they tend to develop a reverse V formation. Although no one agrees to this fact, it really does make a lot of sense. This formation enables the group to easily monitor each other by simply turning their head. People also tend to deviate from a particular side from time to time to avoid oncoming traffic or to pass someone. Culture also has a major part to play in whether they swerve to the right or left and the preferred side of the road on a country drive. For instance, pedestrians in Japan seem to swerve to the left while Europeans are on the right. The interesting part is that most individuals begin on a neutral ground. However, as oncoming individuals begin to pass them by the side, they also begin to adjust to this current. Number 8. A congested room can dumb you down. Although crowds are more intelligent than most people realize, there is always an incident that lowers their level of intelligence. The perpetrator is staying in an enclosed space with other people and breathing in the same carbon dioxide. Most individuals don't connect their increasing lethargy to the accumulation of this gas. For instance, whenever they are inside a lecture hall or an office, students and workers rather assign a dull IQ to boredom. Of course, for a long while, nobody would think that offices or lecture halls generate sufficient carbon dioxide to weigh people down. But a recent study discovered an amazing truth. For individuals to be able to concentrate and still retain their decision-making skills when the need arises, they should not exceed 4 individuals in an office and 24 grown-ups in a large room. Number 7. Crowds will become a threat when they are treated as such. Irrespective of how delicate some crowds are treated by the authorities, they are simply dangerous. However, a significant role can be played by unsophisticated policing whenever groups become unthinkable. This does not imply that every police officer is an idiot. They might just make an unexpected assumption that can trigger violence. They could presume that a crowd is a potential threat and decide to implement preventive measures. This behavior is usually received with anger. Even though people who gather together have a mutual cause, they are usually not united. They tend to begin as little groups within the crowd. A catalyst is required, though, to create an identity that involves everybody, such as being treated unfairly by the cops. The mood of the crowd has the ability to change their way once they are united. They can either be united in peace or tragically become aggressive and turn against the authorities. Number 6. Every death from stampedes is usually not what it appears. More than 700 individuals lost their lives during the Hajj pilgrimage in Mecca in 2015. Since this incident occurred in a tightly congested gathering, the tragedy was described using the words stampede and panic. The assumption was again created by the prejudice that crowds are simply emotional herds, which prompted the stampede as everyone was running towards the exit. 700 individuals were ravaged along the way. But the event that occurred in 2015 proved the irrelevance of this assumption. Eyewitnesses pointed out that there was no running or panic. It simply started when a man lost his steps and many other individuals fell on him. Several others missed their steps and fell over them. This pile continued for a while, and since the crowds were moving very fast, it was difficult to stop. Many of the victims died from exhaustion and breathing difficulty, and not as a result of being ravaged by the feet. Number 5. Crowds can seem fuzzy in the brain. Every day, the human mind handles different information. Mental screeners perform some separation of important details from the less important ones before arriving at our consciousness to help our brain cope. A similar mechanism can be likened to an annoying or pain-inducing experience. At a certain point, people begin to look for their loved ones among crowds and are unable to identify their faces. This experience is known as crowding. But researchers gave it a name after a cluttered environment and not a large gathering when it was first discovered. They were of the opinion that it had nothing to do with their faces, since humans have been known to identify relatives even among strangers. But it turns out that this effect considers crowds as clutter as well. Whenever this occurs, the brain sees faces as blurry lines and edges. Although we might not see this fuzzy vision, it can make identifying loved ones within a crowd difficult. Then, how can people identify who they are in search of in a crowd? Well, they mostly do that through their body language. Number 4. The critical point is a myth. Critical points are real in animal kingdoms. This moment describes when a shoal of fish and a flock of birds starts to look in a similar direction. This enables them to combine into a new viewpoint without experiencing a significant smash-up. Experts obtained this data from a popular experiment in the 1960s for several decades in order to support their ideology that this critical point also exists within crowds. Simply put, several individuals follow the other people's viewpoint until a certain level where everybody looks in just one direction. Another experiment performed in 2012 with the use of a cutting-edge surveillance device and performers nullified this myth. The performers mimicked a 1969 plot, stood in a busy street, and feigned looking at an object. They were sometimes few and could be as much as 15. Subsequently, passersby began to follow their gaze even though it was initially weak. Below 30% imitated the act of the performers, while many others did not even stop their movement. Number 3. Biggest religious gatherings are an opportunity to dump family members. Every 12 years, the city of Allahabad, which is located in northern India, hosts the biggest religious gathering in the world. A festival known as Maha Kumbh Mela is hosted by the city. About 80 million Hindu pilgrims go to the Allahabad to wash their sins away in the river Ganges, while few others have less honest intentions. They might go with unexpected and undesirable elderly family members with the intention of abandoning them. Leaving someone behind in the large crowd without being discovered is very easy. The elders are assembled by shanties and taken to the missing person's tent. Although some become separated from their loved ones genuinely, who later come back to claim them, but there are numerous elders who are usually left behind each time during the festival. Many of them are unable to return home because they have no idea where home is, since they lived in rural isolation throughout their lives. Some can only mention the district of their village, but their fate remains unknown. While some might eventually live in shelters, many of these left behind elders spend their remaining days begging for alms on the streets. Number 2. Group apathy prevents onlookers from assisting victims. Onlookers are usually considered to be callous whenever an individual is being harmed without getting help, even when crowds are present. This lackadaisical attitude cannot be condoned by some individuals when they hear about the incident, but things are more complicated than they seem. Many people get confused about the next plan of action whenever unexpected peace-disturbing events occur. First, they consider the reaction of those around them before deciding on the situation and cue on how to react. There's every tendency that this is similar to others. The individual might begin to see that no one is reacting, which is why they do nothing. Groups are also more liable to think that somebody else might intervene, somebody else might make that 911 phone call, they will check the cause of the scream, or prevent that man from beating his kid. This kind of apathy is not entirely callous, but can reach a dangerous stage. At this stage, a crowd can witness a murder without doing anything, just like the murder of Queens-born Kitty Genovese in 1964. Number 1. Groups have different views on events. This might seem extreme, but it occurred that the phrase memory conformity has been developed by psychologists to explain how the combination of groups can affect people's ability to remember events accurately. People tend to absorb perspectives from an event they also witnessed when they hear other people's views. These details then become interwoven into the recollection of the listener and become more real as they continue to listen to more details. This principle occurs everywhere from small groups describing personal encounters to a news story followed by a nation. The social media alone contains an unenviable number of these distorted events. With several reinforcements, large crowds can begin to recollect incidents that do not even exist or never happened. If you've enjoyed this Tiptop 10 video, be sure to share and hit the red subscribe button so you never miss the latest top 10 lists from the mundane, craziest, weirdest, yet normal things we've ever seen in our lives.